Hey Leonard, how's it going?
Good. How you doing, Toufi?
Good, good. So we're going to go through several of those discussions, kind of like live discussions, you and I, and then talking about um, why we feel that there's a lot of synergistic things to work on those projects and have partnerships and so on and so forth. Um, and perhaps you can start with like a quick introduction of who we are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So that way, because it's like many of the people that they know already, both of us, they probably, um, hear it like a very concise version, but then it's nice for people to kind of rehash sometimes, and that way, some people that they don't know us and they get to get the intro. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome, awesome. Would you like to start?
Sure. So I'm Leonard Kish. I'm the co-founder, along with Josh Robinson, which you'll see on some of these videos here pretty soon, of a company called YouBase, and we've recently developed a product. We've always been about distributed data, and I think that's why you and I have always gotten along, and seen synergy from the beginning. Toufi, I think we're both big believers in decentralization. We got into this originally to decentralize data, going back. I was thinking about this in 2014, 2015 when I first met Josh and learned about crypto, and was thinking about how people, how could they own their data, much like, if you own Bitcoin or crypto, you kind of are your own bank, your own bank account. So we've developed this distributed data infrastructure called the YouBase Distributed Data Protocol. And now we have a product that we're getting ready to release called Cortex. And Cortex is a note-taking and publishing tool for Web3, meaning that you can publish and create notes, create web pages that have a decentralized domain and live on a decentralized infrastructure, all with human readable names. I can go to, so if you want, I can just go into a little bit of a screen share and talk a little bit more
Sure.
about that. Let's
Did
have some
you
questions.
want we do like I'll get in some intro and ask questions as well,
Yeah,
perhaps in a
sure.
minute. Okay, cool. So I also think that from YouBase, you've built several products. I think you've built a platform, and then you've got a stance of that right now, that the Cortex, which is super exciting, which is super aligned with the whole YouBase thing. Um, and I think when we got together with like Toda, YouBase, just a quickly, my name is Toufi Saliba. I'm the co-author of Toda.IP protocol. My other co-author, his name is Dan. Um, and we started working on Toda protocol without the intent to build a protocol. It was at the time to solve one of the elements that exists on Bitcoin. There's something that is called the hash cache, which is part of the proof of work, and we like the proof of work a lot. But at the time, we felt that maybe there's a method to solve that, to continue making it decentralized. Like you have like one personal computer, one vote. That's the intent of using the proof of work in the first place. But as we know, this evolved into, whether regressive or whatnot, to have a different angle. So we were trying to solve that, and we ended up with something that is called the Toda IP protocol, because it's solves that plus plus. So at the time, we felt that maybe Bitcoin can benefit from it. But as we all know, Bitcoin is a little bit more a community, not just a technology, and it takes a lot for folks to make changes, and sometimes people end up changing their belief when there's changes and forks and whatnot. So what do we do with what we have? We ended up attracting a lot of businesses that they want to build the maximum decentralization. And why decentralization is basically end up having security by design, so you end up benefiting from a lot of efficiencies. When we say security by design, we stand behind that statement. It's effectively, if something belongs to you as a user, whether it is money or content or private pictures or non-fungible tokens, whatever it is that belongs to you. You've worked hard to earn it, and perhaps you want to have self-sovereign power over it. And it seems that it's a general thing across all of us Homo sapien. We don't find any human anywhere on the planet to say it's like, I want to work really, really hard and own something, and I don't mind if anybody can take it away at some point. So we have that in common, and we feel that that's why we say that we're building it for the end user. And when you build something to the end user, a lot of businesses, they start coming together to start building on top of this. So given that we enable that to build, so then there's a lot of implementations that they are building on Toda, and my co-author and I, we can facilitate that. So in order to facilitate that and incentivize a lot of investors, as you know, like we ended up building something called Toda.Network, which is a holding company, as opposed to just my co-author and I. Then there's a lot of other people there are holding those equities in many different companies. And our bet is that if we are authentic in what we're delivering, then we can win when those businesses win. Because if those businesses are going to save 99.9%, on the reduction of friction, then they're going to have a much better chance at winning and much higher level of success. So that's what we do. That's who I am, and I'm excited to work here with Leonard, and I continue to be excited to work with Leonard and Josh, and see what's happening with the Cortex, because Cortex is something to me. I feel like it's close to heart when people that are not in the blockchain space, not in a decentralized space, ask the question. So why do you care as a user? Well, you do, and I'm going to tell you why. Because everything that you work online, the whole ethos of YouBase, that belongs to you. Now you may choose. You might be okay if like Google use it. YouTube, they give you phenomenal service in exchange. That's fine. But having that ability that you can change your mind at some point doesn't exist in the old world, that it's not decentralized. It's not that it doesn't exist because they don't want to give it to you. Some companies, they elect to give it to you. But it's like somebody is electing to give you what you already own. So what YouBase comes in and changes that, says like, if they elect to give it to you or not, you can make that election. You don't really need them to make the election. It gives you a little bit more power over your self-sovereignty. And that little bit more power can go a long way, because every tiny little bit matter in a lot of the things that you do. And we're becoming more and more online. So people need to be cognizant of the fact that if you don't belong to yourself, you're going to belong to someone else, and you're at the mercy of someone else. So at the end of the day, it's all about the user, and I'm excited to even the name YouBase indicate that, and now Cortex. It's fascinating to work with you guys. So that's a quick intro with an entire history of how we got here.
Thanks, Toufi. So yeah, I think it is a bit of a breakthrough. We like to say that we're building a web with crypto at the core, meaning that every web page that you publish lives in a distributed environment, or really wherever you want it to live. The keys just point towards your personal identity that's human readable. They can live on IPFS. Eventually, they'll be able to live on AWS. They could live on your own machine. But your whole environment in which you can operate now online can really, truly become yours in a way that's simple to use and even simple to code against.
So. Awesome. That's great. Okay, so Leonard, why don't we do this? You're going to be able to share your screen soon. And then why don't we spend like 5 minutes so you can give somebody who's never really heard anything about Cortex, what's the core benefits to them? Because at the end of the day, it is, you're dealing with users. As you know, like I deal with businesses that they're dealing with users, and I feel like it's exciting every time I see those kind of things and what you're building here. So,
sure. So yeah, it looks like I'm screen sharing now. So yeah, as I mentioned, we think of it like a web with crypto at the core, and I'll explain a little bit about that. But on the surface, it's really Cortex is a notebook. Much like a lot of popular notebooks, Evernote and a lot of the newer ones, Notion. It's a personal notebook, but we always believed that the issue with a lot of current notebooks is that, as Toufi was saying, that data really isn't yours. This is all built on a cryptographic wallet. So each of the pages become keys, and you can very simply then publish those pages or keep them private or keep them within a shared space, really a crypto space, crypto web space between you and another person. So
I'm
we think
going
of
to
it as
jump
the
in
ultimate.
here quickly, if you don't mind, Leonard,
Yeah,
because
sure.
I'm every now and then I might jump in for somebody who is not in the crypto space at all, but an extremely fabulous technologist end up not the math doesn't add up with everything that we've said so far, because they feel like, well, Evernote provides you with that, and they provide you with a lot of encryption, and the data belongs to you, and there's an entire agreement that says belong to you, and so on and so forth. The one thing that is extremely important here, you depend on them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that dependency on them, that means they can choose to not show your data anymore. They can, technically speaking, they have this capability to restrict you from having access to your data.
Yeah,
And having that dependency on your own stuff is on day-to-day basis, perhaps is better if it's a service layer. So anybody who's not in crypto and looking at this would be like, but wait, that's so Cortex, so I'm going to pay Cortex. Is that like a substitute? And the answer is like, no, it is not a substitute, because if it's a substitute, then you depend on it again. The actual dependency has gone back to the user, to yourself,
mm-hmm.
and the service that you choose to be Cortex. If anybody is better than Cortex, they'll be able to replace it because you're able to move it. And that's extremely important, because historically, us Homo sapien, and I'm proud to say us, because now I feel like I'm a Homo sapien, because I used to think that maybe I'm not, maybe I'm an ape or something.
We are apes, but we're also Homo
right.
sapiens. Yeah.
But I mean, so my ex-wives don't believe that, by the way. But anyway, that's a different story. So amicably across the board, by the way, for those things that I'm not really pointing. Going back to this, the historically, when we look at service layers that they provide Homo sapien with certain service, the natural evolution of them is often progressive. Why? Because if they provide you a service that you have the choice to move from left to right or whatnot, they always want to optimize and make sure that you are happy. So that evolution is progressive. And I ask each and every one of you to look at services that you depend on and ask yourself, is it truly always progressive? And whether it is 70% of the governments across the globe, or 70 or 80% of the banks across the globe that you depend on or whatnot, the evolution is not necessarily progressive, because when you depend on them, the money is with them. They can choose to give you their money or not you anymore. And that ends up getting the evolution to be regressive. So that's extremely, extremely important to understand what you mean by security by design, and why decentralization can help in security by design. Please proceed, Leonard.
Yeah, so this is really, and we'll go into that. So as you're pointing out, when you use these centralized applications, first of all, your notes really aren't yours. You don't own your notes. Data is probably, and they won't often tell you if it's used for targeting. And when I've used some of these notes before, it's always been a little bit unsettling, because a lot of times you want to put private thoughts and things in there. You don't really want to be targeted. You want to know that these things are actually yours and that you control them. And so, because this is all built on the YouBase distributed data protocol, you can really decide where that is, because you control the keys. The keys are, in many ways, the keys are synonymous with the notes in our architecture. So
Which, in the end goal, as everybody knows, that they looked into the evolution of YouBase here. YouBase has a phenomenal implementation on Toda, but right now we're demoing a lot of like a proof of concept and a lot of MVPs. What's coming at the end of the day, the reason why I say Toda, because the listener might think like, okay, well, I'm a technologist, I'm a CTO of Cisco, I know all of those blockchains, they're very extractive, but CTO of Cisco also knows Toda IP is not extractive because he knows his shit really well. Okay, so technologists that really know their stuff really well, they know that when you're building it fully decentralized and it's not extractive, it's actually adding value to people a lot more than extracting. So please proceed.
Yeah, and a personal goal for me, seeing the frustration of a lot of social platforms, and because this does allow kind of linking between notes and linking between keys, we call them blockchain links or blinks, that become just like links between web pages. They become links between these keys that live in this architecture that's almost like a crypto web architecture. So each note and each address lives in kind of a space and a context against other keys and other notes. And I would like for this to be in many ways algorithm proof, meaning you can always build these algorithms, like Twitter has its algorithms for kind of surfacing what information you see. But at the end of the day, because this is all decentralized and a core level will always be under the control of the person with the keys, they can decide what algorithms they choose in order to navigate this kind of crypto space. So that's a big goal that
and for the people that are not in crypto, when they say, okay, well, folks with keys, my grandma lost the keys, my mom lost the keys, and so on and so forth. That's a while back. I can assure you, if you do your research nowadays, the way you can save your keys is safer than you can save your life. I can assure you with that, and I'm happy to have an entire talk on that. There's so many technologies out there of how you can, distribute your keys in ways that nobody can access them but yourself. But even if you die, you can have a certain smart contract that can re-give that to the people that they can inherit you. And if you are alive and you lose your phone completely and your cold storage and all that, you're able to restore that without having huge extraction. It's not like, oh, well, then you have to pay for that service like thousands of dollars a year because you depend on them. Nope. You probably pay $1 a month at most to secure all of your assets that could include trillions of dollars if needs be. Please proceed.
Right, and that's a good point, because each of these pages, each of these notes, or crypto web pages, can hold different assets on different chains. And we've always, that's another reason that we've gotten together at Toufi, is we've always wanted to create things that are kind of chain agnostic or protocol agnostic as much as possible. So all this is built on very kind of standard technology, and that's the kind of stuff that you and I will be implementing in the weeks and months to come to try and keep that
cool.
independent. And I think I can probably just show you a demo.
Yeah, please.
Where Cortex is at right now. I think I have to stop share and then go back. But my mouse isn't showing up.
Yeah, go ahead. You can stop sharing and go back. And while you're doing that, I can tell folks that the newest partnership that we're working on, which I can have that in the subsequent talk after this, is with the Earth64, which is a phenomenal marriage between those two, because with Earth64, we split a lot of the components in Toda IP, and one of the components is the data structure. Why did we split it? Well, the data structure for computer scientists, imagine there's a data structure for anything of value that can handle everything of value on this planet. It's more like the grounds to unite us all. I'll have that covered in the talk. And having the cost to be fractions of a penny to own that NFT container for life. Beautiful. Okay. So, Leonard, please proceed.
Yeah, I think that's a key point. I think NFTs are obviously going crazy right now, but there are limitations, and as we see gas prices go up and down,
Yeah, because they're all
we
ledger-based
would,
NFTs. So we're providing folks with Earth-based NFTs, and I'll talk about that. It's
and
Earth-based NFTs. It's like phenomenal for everything that we've all dreamt of in the crypto community.
yeah, I mean, if NFTs are taking off now, when they become essentially free, um, to mint and create and trade, uh, that's going to be a big day for digital assets in general. So this is just an overview of, if you open the Cortex application, the kind of thing you'll see. These are essentially, you can think of these as like top level file structures, very much like you see when you open a file or a notebook in another app. The difference here is that each one of these file structures, and I'll open one in a second, is based on a channel and a key. And the keys that create that notebook and all the notes within it are all kind of derived by the same structure, so that they have a unique human rateable name and a global identity that can reference them on a decentralized DNS as it is right now. And Toufi and I are working on some things to make that even more global, as you say.
Right. Cool. So did you want to click on like this is the, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so this is a note, and this is the top level note. You can kind of see where it's kind of the home here. What's different about Cortex? The notes currently are in Markdown, and if you use say Rome, it's essentially kind of a Markdown notebook, or IA Writer. There's 20 commands or so to use Markdown. It's very simple, so you get kind of a basic note like this that has an output like this, and we'll be able to have attachments, and we can link from one note to another. Just by creating links, very much like web links today. The difference is that these now link between keys. So you have these links that connect keys together in non-transactional ways. And I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of what that might mean for a kind of crypto web, for how things can be linked together. So if I go to, I think what's happening today, that'll take me to a layer within the notebook that's also very much like, again, like the file store. Say we think of Cortex as the area to the right of the URL. So just like in a web page today, you'd go down to that note, and that then takes me, and this will look more and more like a browser as we evolve it, but this then takes you to this note that exists off of the root for today, and I put this on May 31st, but then I can go back to the root and see the original page. So what really makes this, again, unique is that each of these is cryptographic keys. There will be a publish button, and we already actually have our own page published to a decentralized DNS that I can put in here in a bit, but essentially we're already running web pages very much like this, built in Cortex, that live on Butterfly Protocol, which Josh also wrote, which is decentralized DNS. And then kind of down to the right side of that URL, the file structure is kind of what exists in Cortex and what we allow people to create in Cortex, and what's going to allow people to publish in a fully decentralized environment coming up very soon. So another kind of benefit to this is kind of, I mentioned a little bit earlier, what defines one of these file structures or key structures is the kind of root key. So it could be a key that you're already using, that you have the private key, the channel, and then the kind of name that's put into it. And that's how the architecture is created. And it does create this kind of key-based architecture for data as well as for crypto.
Cool.
So this is all with keys. So this is starting to look a little bit like a browser, but it's really a Web3 browser and development tool all in one. The channels are then going to enable people to do more private sharing. So if you and I have a channel together.
Doesn't know what's Web 1, Web 2, what's Web 3 browser.
So Web 3, I think, we talk about Web 3 as being kind of a crypto-enabled web. I think this maybe goes a level deeper than what people currently talk about Web 3, where kind of crypto transactions are built on top. That's at a very basic level. This is building crypto into every page and every comment. You could use these pages as comments on other pages because of the linking. It really becomes a fully crypto centric, or we call it, a web with crypto built into the core of each page. So that you can hold assets there associated with each page. So if you bought an NFT and you wanted to collect data around it, you could write a note and put artwork or even videos eventually about the NFT. It becomes an NFT display space as well.
So is that like a client software that looks like a browser?
Yeah.
Okay, so that you can browse old web too.
Yeah, because this is, if I go to what's happening today, essentially we'll have a very much like a browser bar here where you can just put in today, 2021, May 31st.
It's like the Chromium browser, but has a little bit more things to it.
Yeah, very much.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Obviously, I know the answers. I'm just saying the benefits of somebody who's listening for the first time. That's fantastic.
And then we could go into creating a new structure if you want, but maybe that's enough for today. I think we've been talking for a bit.
Sure. Okay, cool. So then I'll spend the next 8 minutes talking about Earth64 and why we think that synergistic emergence can grow between the two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sounds great.
Amazing. Okay, so if we were to separate those videos into two, so maybe I'll give you a quick intro. Leonard and I will cover that in the first episode, and now let's say this is the second episode. That's 1.5, episode 1.5. Let's call it that. Okay, so with that, we're going to talk about the ultimate NFT management system. We should call it that maybe, or the Earth-based NFTs. So folks that they don't know what NFT, I'm going to go through some slide back here and I'll cover that. Let's do it. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep, I see it.
All right. So we call it Earth64 for the people that they like numbers. It turns out 2 to the power 64 is all the square centimeters that they cover the entire planet Earth. Okay. Beautiful coincidence. So we have just so people know, Earth64 is a DAO, and it transpired from several companies working, utilizing that square centimeter representation in something that we call Sato server. Why Sato server? It's basically the smallest software server that ever existed on this planet Earth that can manage, let's say, datum instead of data. Okay, just a single record. But that record, the way it manages in such a way that you can have ownership in it. That didn't exist before. So we kind of created that. And it was working very well, and it's still working very well for land. For a lot of people, they use it for land ownership, not necessarily to replace the current land ownership structure, but it's to provide landowners with the ability to have those Sato servers build new value into planet Earth. Okay, so now what do we do with Earth64? We started looking at the world of NFTs, and we realized that can NFT be used for product pre-purchase? NFT is non-fungible token. For those that they don't know what non-fungible token, it is effectively, there's a video that I'll post here that can actually give give an idea of what it's about. Let me share it. Should I put it up? If I put it in the chat, people can see it. Maybe.
I don't see the chat right now, but
Oh man. Okay, that's not okay. Okay, well, we can do that separately. But anyway, I don't know why it posted this one instead of posting the other one. So, can NFT be used for product pre-purchase? And the answer is yes, it can. And in fact, we will be bringing it. So, what does that mean? So imagine you're a software company that you sell a software, or your game company, you sell video games or music or whatever it is. Each and every one of that software that you sell to the customer can go in a bucket that is called an NFT, that it's as frictionless as possible, and that gives the ownership of the software. So whoever owns the NFT has ownership of the software. Why is that so advantageous to you? Because sometimes you sell the software to Leonard. Leonard doesn't want it anymore and give it to Toufi. You want to make sure that there's no two copies of that software. There's only one. They can pass that ownership. Effectively can become a marketplace of your products, which is phenomenal. People have been dreaming of doing that for so long, and now there isn't some third party that you have to rely on when you put it in those what you call them Earth-based NFTs. So the scope basically of this project is to have a replicatable model. So we will be doing it in this project. So every owner of a single NFT in this project would be old school NFTs, like Ethereum or whatnot. One NFT that this DAO mint per day assigns ownership, including the key to unlock the software and so on and so forth, to 2.2 quadrillion Earth-based NFTs. In some cases, 1.1 quadrillion. But we can get to the details. Some people might say, it's like, oh my God, that's a big number, or that's why is it just that? Well, we will describe why those numbers, but effectively, if you want to build, if you are Central Bank of England and you want to build central bank digital currency, or you are Satoshi Nakamoto version 2, you want to build your Bitcoin and you want to have certain number that cannot be exceeded by design, instead of like doing the 21 million Bitcoins, you can have those 2.2 quadrillion. 21 million Bitcoin is actually about 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis, okay? So if you're the Bank of England, or if you are Satoshi Nakamoto version 2, your users, you would want them to talk to each other without having to rely on third-party exchange. And this thing facilitates that by construct. You don't really need to depend on a third party. Beautiful. So what we did, we went and we timestamped each in the coordinates of this planet Earth. They happen to be unique. And this consensus existed before electricity, 480 years for electricity. So we went and took the geo coordinates, okay? They look like this thing here. And those coordinates unique for every square centimeter. Why square centimeter is so important? It's for two reasons. One, it relates to grandpa. They can put their finger on it. It's the size of the finger. And the other thing is that the 7 decimals of geo coordinates is the global consensus that you can go to the smallest geo coordinates where it's identified to be unique globally. We're talking about numbers, guys, that they are unique on this planet Earth and they are finite. And we went and timestamped them. Why we timestamped them? Because this is the other unique numbers that exist on this planet Earth, that there's global consensus is time. So time and space. Beautiful. Created that, and put it into data structure. And the data structure is effectively, it's a huge binary tree that is 2 to the power 64. Okay. So that's the binary tree that is like, deterministic. And effectively, the smallest unit, which is a square centimeter, would live in a file. That file is 64 kilobyte. That happens to be 64 kilobyte, has nothing to do with 64, by the way. 64 kilobyte is because the size of the network packet, TCP, as we talk right now, is 64 kilobyte, because Sato servers is also compatible with the Toda IP that can be the smallest possible thing that can be transmitted online without having to depend on TCP/IP. Okay, we can discuss that later on. But effectively, imagine you have an ownership of a file that has 64 kilobyte, but you have 2.2 quadrillion of those files by simply owning a single one of those NFTs. Why is that so important? Because each and every one could represent a penny, could represent sub-penny, could represent a dollar, could represent whatever you want it to represent. You can put even the Mona Lisa in a single one of those Sato servers and will have more security than any ledger-based blockchain. Okay? And we stand behind that claim. So why? Because there is no dependency on the ledger. Effectively, if you own the key, you own it. There is no dependency on the ledger. So in the land project, there's a lot of progress that is happening in Canada, Sweden, Norway, Finland, and a lot of other Nordic countries. But we took that technology and are applying it to areas that there's another global consensus that 194 nations agreed to. Certain areas in the ocean, they're not owned by anybody. Great. Because they're not owned by anybody, which is the opposite of what land is, then we use those numbers that they could represent music, could represent, video game, could represent whatever you want to represent. So again, the goal of this project is to enable people that they buy those NFTs to themselves become implementers, or maybe they are just like software distributors, just want to buy it for $1 million and sell it to Central Bank of England for $10 million. Like I said earlier, we deal with a lot of businesses and technologies, so this is what this thing provides. But we've also put it in a DAO that is deterministic. The way this DAO, each and every one of them, they are unique. We call it NFC, which is non-fungible container that has those 2.2 quadrillion. The NFT that people would own in Ethereum gives you the ownership of 2.2 quadrillion. You own it, you want to do your own implementation, that's fantastic. What does that implementation do? You enable you to have 2.2 quadrillion units, whether you want it to create a currency or NFT management system, whatever you want to do with it, it enables those things. I should have said before that NFT is actually the core foundation of cryptocurrency and not the other way around. People, they learned about it after the fact.
Right.
But the core foundation of cryptocurrency is NFT. Even Bitcoin, the smallest unit is Satoshi. It is actually an NFT. Not a lot of people tell you that. They try to deny that, but that's a fact. Okay.
Could you expand on that a little bit?
So
for people who might not know, like maybe go a layer deeper on why is a Satoshi
so non-fungible token. It's basically a token that, like, if you were to hold it, has this unique characteristics that it's coming from your wallet. And I know if it's coming from your wallet, and let's say you could be like Elvis Presley, and I care so much about it, so it's like, because it's coming from your wallet, it has more value. But if it's coming from some criminal, it has less value. So it's end up gaining those characteristics, and people, they try to deny the fact that, well, they don't know, because they think that Bitcoin is fungible. Well, Bitcoin transaction is fungible, because when you're doing 1 million of those, there's the ups and downs. But when you go down to the single Satoshi, it's actually, you can trace it back to inception through its entire life. So it is an NFT.
So each Satoshi has a history that's lives with that Satoshi.
Right. The disadvantage that we have, because it is a ledger-based currently Bitcoin, so it's still kind of dependent on that ledger. But in the Bitcoin blockchain, Satoshi is an NFT. Okay. So what we did with Earth64, we split the three pillars that people would need to build the perfect, or the ultimate NFT management system. So you may want to build it on Cardano, you may want to build it on Toda.IP, it's up to you. But Ethereum, that would be the secure implementation protocol. Maybe you want to build it in a centralized system because you are Electronic Arts. I don't care. It's up to you. You choose. The implementer can choose what they want, the secure implementation protocol. The beauty of this data structure, that it separates it. So if the owner of a single unit here, they can take it from yours and put it in somewhere else. They don't depend on anybody. Okay, so that's unprecedented. That's what basically we're doing with this project. I'll stop here because we will save some for episode 2, because there's a lot going on here and there's a lot of exciting stuff. This is the last slide that I'll show folks, which I alluded to earlier, the 2.2 quadrillion Earth-based NFTs. And the container, it's called basically a Sato server. So to learn more, there will be more on Earth64.com, but we will cover that in subsequent episode. I know we decided to spend this time on this, so I will stop the recording.
Let me test. Let me ask. So let me test my 3 takeaways from Earth64, and see if you tell me if this is accurate. So the first thing is this becomes universal because it's not reliant on any one chain, right? Because of the nature of there's already consensus on what these are based on, right? The next is they really become inexpensive, right? Inexpensive to transact, inexpensive to create, and there's just a lot more that you can do with them. Is that accurate?
Right. Like, I mean, basically, imagine you're buying the 2.2 quadrillion for $1 million. Okay. Here's the 1 million. You see what I'm pointing at? This is the 1 million. This is 1 million. 2.2 quadrillion, basically, it's like 0.0000001 cent each. Okay. So it's like, that's the price for life. For it to reside, it doesn't really cost anybody anything. You can even write it on a piece of paper. This is unprecedented. Okay. So this is super beautiful.
So independent of any protocol, far more inexpensive. And what about speed and resiliency? What do you expect from Sato server?
So this is what people can choose whatever transactional pillar they would want. There's over 1,000 blockchains. Each and every one of them they claim to be secure, and they are faster than the other ones or whatnot. Some people they say it's like, Cardano. Some people they say it's Algorand. Some people they say Avalanche. Some people they say the Central Bank of England is gonna have faster than all of them. Some people they say China. You pick and choose. Basically, if you own one single Satoshi and you choose certain blockchain that the receiver, so if I own one and I'm gonna send it to Leonard, as long as Leonard is comfortable with that secure implementation protocol, whether it is centralized or decentralized, I'm able to send it to Leonard. Now, when Leonard receives it, whatever that implementation protocol benefits from that equation, that's great. But Leonard, if he wants to send it to Josh or Dan, he might choose another one and send it as well. That's unprecedented, okay? So anybody who's listening will be like, oh my God, that cannot be done. Well, of course, if it could be done, I wouldn't be doing it. Okay, so anyway. So that's the beauty of so imagine single owner of this it owns all of those. What can you do with that? A lot of things. Some people that we're talking to, they want to build a cryptocurrency. So they buy this for like $1 million and they want to sell each for like 1 cent. And that would be like quadrillions of dollars that they could make from this entire equation. Other people that they want to build NFT management system for video games, some for music, and so on and so forth. Some people they just want to buy it and resell it because they feel like I can buy this for $1 million and sell it for more. There's a limited amount of those. There's 1,744 in the world. That's it. You cannot have more. Not because I decided that that's the number. That's Earth. Okay, we're not gonna have a fork of Earth. There is no fork. This is it. So we timestamp that. If Cisco find that this technology is fabulous and they want to copy you, the implementer, they will end up be looking like they've copied you because you've got a timestamp from way before they've even found out about it, because we give this with its timestamp that's been timestamped in the past. We timestamped it on the Bitcoin blockchain, which is great. But anybody can use it for anything that they want to. And ideally we sell to technologists, but if it's somebody who wants to be distributor to buy it and resell it, that's fine. Somebody wants to buy it and build a system, back-end system for trading and exchanging NFTs for some marketplaces that already exist, that's great. you need to be frictionless if you want to compete against your competition. And of course, the current prices of this is not $1 million. We give it like a much bigger discounts because we scale to that together with all the community. So currently, there's only like some private investments we're doing and private sales for some of those. And happy to talk to people privately about it until we push the button for that NFT that can represent that ownership. Once it's pushed, it's a DAO. I can no longer control the actual prices as they're expressed here.
Yeah.
Basically, all of this would be transitioned to this DAO, and the DAO can control all that going forward. Every single day, one single NFT that can get created, not more than once per day, which is also beautiful. It keeps even like the 1,744 is they can last for 1,744 days. So that's what we're doing with this. And we already pre-sold 213. There's 5 more that could potentially close to 118. So we're around that. You know, so it's phenomenal. We haven't even like made any announcement. Haven't even made it's all like, you know, friends and family and so on and so forth.
Yep. And likewise, we are doing a private sale, and we'll be selling domains within the that architecture between Butterfly and Cortex, so people can stake out their domains early.
Cool. I wanted to ask you something, which we're still debating here. If somebody owns one of those, can they make it? Is it beneficial if we do it by construct that once they buy it, they can have the ability to have, let's say, an equivalent to ERC20 or something like that right away, or should we let them decide whatever they want to do with it? Because this is an enabler. It's more like a server that people, or a bunch of servers, like 2.2 million servers.
I mean, I think that people would want to claim their, you know, Earth64 domain within that context, because, you know, like you see with so many of things that become limited, people are going to want you know, more than anything, people want to say that they were in early and they were part of that. So I think there is a benefit.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Leonard, that was great.
It'll look cool.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, so we're definitely going to have episode 2, and then we can talk more about that. And hopefully this can grow into community. I've never really done any project like that in public places. It's all been like a lot of private stuff. So it's exciting to see this coming together. And anytime anybody's interested in things, please, you know where to find me on LinkedIn. You can put my name, you can send me a message, or you can find me on Telegram. It's Toufi, Toufii. And of course, I can share my signal. But I've promised earlier that I would send that video, so I'm gonna share it right now in case folks they're still interested in seeing it. And it's a video that explains what's NFT. So rather than spending the time here in this, there's a 25-minute video, explains what's NFT in details. And I think, Leonard, you liked it. you like that one, right? Because the one I put.
Oh, that's just the one that yeah. I think actually one of the partners of the decentralized domain service that we're using, Butterfly Protocol. It's actually a decentralized hosting service that posted that. I think Stack OS is the name.
Okay, so I shared that YouTube video that explains NFTs, and I will post it also on YouTube when we upload this. Sounds good?
Sounds good, awesome. Yeah. And you can find us at crtx.app, crtx.app on the web, and I'm on Telegram, Hypergraph with an I at the end, Hypergraphy. Right?
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, Leonard. And yeah, looking forward to having episode 2. So that would be